I'll be asking Dr. Natasha Azzopardi Muscat to come up and give us a little summary of her views of this conference, looking at some of the plenary presentations and so on. Later, my job will come to an end, and I'll be thanking all the people responsible for helping me over the last 3 years, really, to come to this great event. And finally, I'll hand over to Walter for Brussels 2013. So, let's get this show on the road. We have 3 prizes, which are traditional UFA events. The first is the highest scoring abstract. And this is something which people vote for by our scientific committee. I'd like to thank all the members here of the International Scientific Committee. Many of them are not seen by anyone, but they are very much appreciated, and they do work quite hard for us. They not only score all the abstracts, then they help us choose who goes in and who goes out. The second prize we will be talking about is the Ferenc Bojan Award for the combination of abstract and presentation of the young professionals, young researchers. And this is done in front of a committee. And the third prize we'll be dealing with is the Best Poster Prize. And as you know, many of you have voted for this, and we've had 159 votes on that. So let me get the ball rolling. Firstly, I would like to call the person who has won the prize for the highest scoring abstract for Malta 2012. And this is Barbara Figueiredo. Barbara? Barbara's prize has been awarded for a paper entitled Anxiety and Depression in Women and Men from Early Pregnancy to 3 months Postpartum. Congratulations. Part of the prize is a waiver on registration for Brussels 2013. So that's a great thing to aspire to. The next prize, Barbara might have known, but the others don't. So this is going to be a surprise for the other 2. The next prize is for the Ferenc Bojan Award. There are some of you who came to the session. It was very interesting. We had 6 young researchers who really did their very best and had an excellent presentation. It's wonderful to see this from countries across Europe. And again, for this certificate and for a waiver of his registration for the next conference, I'd like to call for this prize the winner of the Ferenc Bojan Award for 2012, who is Ferruccio Pellone from Italy. His paper was entitled The Impact of Fiscal Decentralization on Health Outcomes, Empirical Evidence from Italy, from the team. Congratulations. The third prize is the Best Poster Prize, which many of you have helped by voting, and we always urge you to vote on this year, next year, and all the years. From 149 votes, this vote obtained, this particular presentation, this poster, obtained 21 votes, which was the majority. And we might all perhaps take the time to revisit this poster. In fact, you probably all remember this poster because you've seen something sticking out of the poster. And for not the first time at all, but the umpteenth time, the winner of the Best Poster Prize this year for 2012 is Gabriele Messina from Italy. His poster is entitled Unpleasant and Stinking Hosts. It's always lovely to see reward for great effort. And I think it's also good that we all learn from these winners and see how better perhaps the rest of us can do something, take a lesson from them. At this point, I'd like to ask Dr. Natasha Azzopardi Muscat to come over and take the floor. Besides being a section head for UFA, Natasha is also Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health in Malta. And of course, I'll be mentioning her later on because she's also been a member of the scientific committee for this conference and also a member of the local organizing committee of this conference. Natasha.
Thank you, Julian. I didn't expect to see a room full of so many people at this time. And I must say it was quite surprising for me when Julian asked me to try and do the summing up, because I associate the summing up with normally some very eminent people. But anyway, I've tried to do my best. It was a very packed conference, and it's not going to be easy to sum up in a few words. On behalf of the local organizing committee, I would like to start by thanking all of you who in some way contributed to the success of the conference over the past few days. I think this conference was a very important landmark. It marked the 20th anniversary of the setting up of UFA, a small project that started out from a noble idea of public health researchers who felt they had to go beyond the mere confines of the traditional researcher role and do something for public health at a European level. It was also the 5th anniversary of the European Public Health Conference as we know it today, which has brought together leading organizations in public health in Europe and really taken this conference altogether to a different scope, level, and dimension. When a few years back we selected the topic all-inclusive public health, we wanted to show the multidimensional nature of causes and consequences of health outcomes at population level in Europe. And I think that we have managed to do this, as the plenaries, parallel sessions, workshops, and posters have tackled a wide array of topics, pushing the boundaries, testing new theories, sharing best practice, and discussing some controversial and unresolved issues. Of course, I cannot do justice to the wealth of the exchange that has taken place over the past 100 hours or so, but I will briefly go through some of the important points. I must also state at the outset that this is going to be a very unscientific, congeniality-biased summary, typical of a policymaker selecting to highlight those points which I personally found most resonated with my vision of the world. So, the conference got off to a fantastic start with Louise Gunning-Scheppers putting forward the challenge that we do reasonably well on knowledge generation, but less well on knowledge dissemination and implementation. She also noted the growing gap between the scientific press and lay press, a concept that was reiterated in other sessions and workshops. She raised the important point of valorization and challenged us all to ask ourselves, I think, what will be the take-home question? How can we put our knowledge together to serve governments and society better? We were immediately after challenged by David Stuckler, who reminded us of the power and industry interests of big industry and the global effects on public health as a result. Laura Morlock, from the other side of the Atlantic, shared her views on the roles of universities, the need to resuscitate social objectives, and, very importantly, improve our metrics to measure academic performance outside the traditional roles of teaching and publication. Leonard Mitzi, David Strachan, and Carl Ekdahl gave us 3 perspectives on how technology can be linked to public health in different fields, the positive and negative outcomes from the use of technology. They raised very important challenges, such as the need for public health to engage more with agriculture because of the impact of food production on global public health, the need to acknowledge that there is much interaction between genetic and environmental epidemiology, which humbly we are only just beginning to understand, and the common challenges being faced by public health practitioners in both communicable and non-communicable diseases. And we were asked, does this segregation still make sense in public health and health services research today? Paul Garthwaite demonstrated how we can successfully adopt innovative methods to obtain evidence in situations where traditional forms of evidence may be hard to come by. And Lucas Balwicki challenged us to follow our value system, and therefore, in some way, both these researchers encouraged us to break new ground in the way we choose to do things. Throughout the conference, much reference was made to the recent WHO strategies and publications, which were adopted here in Malta only a few weeks ago. These provide an interesting framework for the public health community to continue to engage with, and Hans Kluge from the World Health Organization outlined their principles. The respective heads of UFA and ASFE, Walter Ricciardi and Helmut Brand, shared their viewpoints about which is probably, in my perspective, the most important public health agenda item facing us, namely the needs of the elderly population in society, and what we can and must do to promote, protect, and improve the health of our elderly citizens in Europe, particularly in this upcoming age of austerity. Robert Romasco gave us a perfect example of how we can engage in a whole-of-society approach to health by working with NGOs and civil society. This morning, Christina Alexanderson and Roger Ingham shared some thought-provoking ideas about work and sex and how these two elements can enhance or be detrimental to our body, mind, and spirit, forcing us to think carefully about cultural stereotypes and the need to break out of these stereotypes if we truly want people to become empowered to enjoy good health in its widest definition. Gordon Gallia illustrated the heterogeneity of implementation of evidence-based policies across the European region, showing how public health outcome is still very much a question of luck in terms of your birthplace and country of residence, and reinforcing the point made in the opening plenary session, namely that whilst we have the evidence, there is still a long way to go when it comes to implementation. Nazim Salyoska reminded us that in Europe today, there are still groups who face inequality and inequity on a daily basis. And finally, Ahmed Bougri alerted us to the perceptions of African immigrants on the health services, whereby access and entitlement from a statutory point of view do not necessarily translate into an effective health service engagement because of diverse cultural beliefs. It is a learning curve and a challenge for our health systems to adapt to these new realities. The workshops continue to highlight new knowledge and, perhaps more importantly, new evidence for public health policy and practice, as well as skills building, particularly for our UFA next generation. It was indeed refreshing to feel and to see that I am growing old, but also that there were so many young and fresh faces and newcomers to UFA amongst us. I think it has been an exciting conference, really and truly, until the very last minute, as we saw from this final plenary session. The sheer energy, enthusiasm, and passion for public health has characterized the past 4 days. And what remains now is to enjoy what is left of the weekend and find a mechanism to make sure that all the important lessons learned here are somehow fed into the policies and systems to improve health of European citizens. Thank you.
Okay, this is where I sum it up and thank a number of people. I mentioned at the start that we mentioned the number of organizations who have helped us, and we mentioned the sponsors and so on. I'd actually like to make this a bit more individual now and thank so many people who made this possible. Of course, this is a huge enterprise. This is a big budget for a very small country and a very small organization. And of course, I think we feel very proud to have been able to do this. You might also wonder how small the public health community is in a small country like this, and I can tell you it's very small. And so we were 4 members of the local scientific committee, and I'd like to thank them all personally. But then those 4 scientific members of the local scientific committee were also onto the local organizing committee, obviously, because this is a small country and we wear many hats. And so this is the way we work. We were multitaskers. We had a number of people helping us. But let's go through this slowly. So I'd like to start with you, the participants. Of course, this is all about participation. So I'd like to thank everyone here for coming and participating. I know you had to leave your countries, leave your families behind, but I know you came for something good and you found it because you had good public health, not just good weather and Maltese hospitality, but I know you found a good forum here for discussions on public health. So firstly, I'd like to thank you all for joining us on this island for these 3 days. We've really much appreciated your presence, your participation, and your deliberations. So thank you very much to all of you. We have to go to an order of things here. So I'm going to go next into thanking all the keynote speakers and moderators, because we invited them all to come, and they all did really made it here. Not all of them actually did. Some quite didn't make it at the end. But this is a list of people who have made it here, who have given us their contributions. I know they've really given it their best, and we've had, I think, excellent plenary sessions. They were well moderated, and there was a wide spectrum represented. And of course, that was the theme here, all-inclusive public health. And all-inclusive public health was very much, I think, represented in the keynote sessions. So I want to thank all the moderators and all the keynote speakers for such excellent presentations. Thank you all very much. Next on our list, our major funder. Of course, the European Commission is our major funder. And we really want to thank the European Commission for this support which we've come to rely on, I think, in EUFA. We come to take for granted almost the fact that the EHC will support this conference, because it is a Europe-wide conference on public health, and because I think it is the largest forum on public health in Europe. So our main sponsor, thanks to the European Commission.